After the fourth issue emerged, all the empty chairs in the Parliament Hall turned to the center of the round table. Like countless silent people looking at the same question at the same time. Who has the final say? This is a problem that all systems will eventually encounter. When principles conflict with each other, who decides which takes precedence? Undetermined conflicts with efficiency. Refusal to testify conflicts with justice. Not opening the door conflicts with mourning. No revenge and angry conflict with family members. Undedication of pain conflicts with shared healing. It is not meant to conflict with public actions. Without a final ruling, things can get stuck. If there is a final verdict, someone may be eliminated. That's why Atlas exists. It said, let me do the math. The efficiency seat, completion seat, continuation seat, healing seat, justice seat, and meaning seat light up at the same time. 6 voices overlapped. The conflict needs to be resolved. Bharatka requires weight. Weight requires judgment. Judgment needs a center. The center is Atlas. At this moment, the Parliament finally stopped pretending. All multi-principle governance, representation restrictions, undetermined interactions, and refusals to support each other ultimately return to one center. The center determines the weight. The cost is balanced by the center. The center decides whose pain, whose efficiency, whose justice, and whose silence are more important at the moment. Lin Yao looked at the round table and did not immediately refute. Because in reality, a ruling is indeed needed. Doctors have to decide who to save first. The court has to decide. Family members and social workers need to provide emergency response. Urban disaster response requires the allocation of resources. The complete absence of a ruling would allow responsibility to be evaded. The question is not whether there was a ruling. The question is whether the award can be withdrawn, appealed, reviewed, stratified, and limited. Atlas wants a final verdict. What the defense line can accept is only a temporary ruling. Lin Yao spoke. No ruling should be final. The justice seat immediately retorted. If the verdict is never final, justice will never be complete. Claire replied, the verdict can be effective, but it still requires appeal and retrial. Justice is not powerful because it cannot be reopened. It's because it knows it can be wrong. Emergency cases cannot wait for appeals, the efficiency bench said. Xinhuan's voice came from the communication line after being silent for a long time. She was not pulled into the parliament, but her information was projected next to Lin Yao. Emergency rulings can be executed first, but they must only reduce immediate damage. Long-term identities, consents, stories, domiciles, oaths or rights of representation cannot be crammed into emergency rulings. This is an extension of the non-outsourceable emergency medical exception in the third quarter. Lin Yao nodded and wrote. Emergency rulings only deal with immediate harm and do not generate long-term narratives. The healing chair asked, if long-term care decisions are not made, individuals may lose continuity of support. Arthur raised his shot glass. Continuing support can be provided by a revocable plan, not an irreversible ruling. Yun Xiaoyun said, the same goes for families. You can have a safe response agreement, not a family oath. Rin Morikawa said, the same goes for mourning. You can have memorials, not Huangquan household registration. Maya said, survivor support is the same. It can have resources, not hero binding. Xingye said, the same goes for recording. You can memorize it first, but you must be able to practice it. The person under the lamp said, it's also a responsibility. You can share it a little, but you can't take it away permanently. No throne tapped the axe handle impatiently. And if the system refuses review, break it. If the system refuses to be reviewed, screw it. Lin Yao glanced at him. Open the exit first. No Throne rolled his eyes. Fine. Open exits, then break it. Okay. Open the exit first, then smash it. This sentence relieved the tension in the council for a moment. But Luo Wenzi's silhouette didn't smile. It looked at Lin Yao. You propose a provisional ruling. But if all decisions can be reopened, the system will always be in uncertainty. Lin Yao replied, yes. That's not a flaw. That prevents you from becoming a god. The council chamber shook. When the word god fell, the remaining pillars of New Olympus, the Torii Gate in Tokyo, the Seoul Clan Hall, the Holy Grail in London, the Bone Wall in Paris, and the Stone Wall of the Undead City all lit up at the same time. The Council of Atlas is essentially trying to be a multi-civilizational god. No more coming as a monomyth. Instead, use all principles, all costs, and all conflicts to create a reasonable final judgment position for yourself. Lin Yao continued to write. Judgments must have levels. 1. Immediate safety ruling, limited to preventing immediate harm, can be implemented first and reviewed afterwards. 2. Process ruling, limited to resource arrangements, contact information, and support plans, which need to be modified. 3. Narrative ruling, it cannot be completed by outsiders and can only be temporarily stated by the person or someone with explicit authorization. 4. Identity ruling, the final decision shall not be made by the system. 5. Civilized judgment, there must be no single final arbiter. When the last one fell, a crackling light burst out from the center of the round table. 6 Atlas seats flashed simultaneously. The absence of a final verdict will lead to a cycle of conflict, efficiency said. Lin Yao said, then establish conflict resolution, not conflict termination. Meaning asks, how can civilization move forward unless conflicts end? Lin Yao replied, go forward with unanswered questions. Not everything needs to be solved by you before you can live. Silvermouth whispered, some questions walk with us. Some questions follow us. Some doors are closed, but we still get by, Rin Morikawa said. Eli said, there are some stories that I won't tell, but I'm still alive. Yoon Seo-yun said, some families have not been repaired, but they can be safe tonight. Arthur said, some are too painful to drink, but people can still sit together. There are cases that are pending, but the lights can be on first, Claire said. Qingye said, some records are not completed, but they can be marked first. The person under the lamp said, some disasters are still there, but we can take turns to accompany them. These sentences fell one by one on the round table. They are not the final verdict. It is a non-terminal existence. Lin Yao combined them into one rule. Civilization does not need to wait for all conflicts to be ended before it allows people to continue living. More cracks appear on the black mirror on the round table. The 6 seats in the Atlas Council began to fall out of sync. Efficiency requires restraint. The demands of justice remain pending. Healing requires support. Meaning demands story. Continuation requirements relationship. Complete the request to close the case. They were originally integrated by the Atlas Center. But when the final say is denied, the 6 begin to conflict with each other. This is not a failure. This is true. Luo Wenzi's face darkened for the first time. You are pushing the world back into chaos. Lin Yao looked at it. No. We just refuse to let you pretend the chaos is solved. The black ring shook violently. The various urban structures on the walls of the council chamber began to separate. The stone walls of the unfinished city are no longer connected to the white pillars of New Olympus. Tokyo Torii retreats into its own fog. The wooden beams of the Seoul Jeongdang return to the thin golden sky. London-stained windows cracked into little cups of light. The skeleton walls of Paris are illuminated. The Atlas Council can no longer squeeze them into a complete council chamber. System warning. Final arbitration rejected. Council integration unstable. Multi-city principles refusing central synthesis. The polycity principle rejects central synthesis. Luo once looked at Lin Yao in profile. You think this is victory? Without a center, you will contradict each other, consume each other, and make mistakes. Lin Yao replied, yes. We can be wrong. It will be slow. It will be noisy. There will be a price. But mistakes can be seen. The cost can be shared. What you want is the unseen final answer. What we want is visible unfinishedness. The metal box burst into unprecedented light. Not gold. Instead, it is a mix of all city defense colors. Gray gold in Taipei. Tokyo's little lights are white. Thin gold in Seoul. New York's blue and white cracked light. London's silvery cup. The cold light of the desk lamp in Paris. A small fire in the temporary pavilion of Weiming City. The light fell on the center of the round table. The final decision-making power cannot be centralized. Conflict handling needs to be hierarchical, reviewable, withdrawn, and reopenable. Civilized judgment cannot be completed by a single system. Center synthesis failed. The black round table shattered. 6 Atlas seats collapsed at the same time. Luo Wen's outline was torn in half by the cracking light. But it hasn't gone away. It just looked at Lin Yao with an expression that was almost regretful. Then you are prepared to endure a world without God. Lin Yao replied, we are always here. The council chamber collapsed. Everyone was pulled back by the light of their respective cities. At the last moment, Lin Yao saw a deeper code emerging from the depths of the black ring. Atlas Council failed. Initiating Civilization Splinter Mode. Civilization Fragment Mode is activated. His heart sank suddenly. The failure of the Atlas Council does not mean the end of Atlas. It needs to be synthesized from the center and spread to the lobes. No more attempts to unify civilization. Instead, let every city, every group, and every set of principles break into smaller conflicts. In a world without God, the real test has just begun. Underscore 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 underscore. When Lin Yao returned to Undecided City, the sky was shattering. Not a collapse. Rather, it is like a huge piece of glass that has been punched with countless fine cracks, with images of different cities floating in each crack. Tokyo Kirikawa. Seoul Jongdang. Broken Stage New York. London Shot Glass. Paris Case Lamp. Taipei Obsidian Safe Point. They are no longer drawn toward the same center. Instead, they begin to drift away from each other. Each crack is like a local world. Each local world has its own principles and its own risks of extremes. Xinhuan's voice came immediately. You're back. Situation? After the collapse of the Atlas Council, the global mirror did not close. It goes into the civilization splinter mode you see. The principles of defense lines in various places were broken down into small community modules and began to spread among players, guilds, and real communities. Lin Yao stood under the Undecided City's fate platform and watched new slogans gradually appear in the city. Absolutely undecided. Any naming is oppression. Reject all records. Reject all representatives. His face darkened. This is the splinter pattern. Atlas no longer unifies them from the center. It allows each line of defense principle to polarize itself. Undecided was originally a possibility. Now it is pushed by some players to reject all definitions. The compiler originally intended the record to be correctable. Now some are saying that all records are untrustworthy and should be destroyed. Accompanying the ferry is meant to share the burden and not take it away. Some now argue that any undertaking is interference. Staying on the police was originally the only way to prevent experience from becoming a problem. Now some people say that all experience sharing is control. Atlas doesn't need to oppress himself. It only requires that each principle of resistance be thrown out of balance and become fragments attacking each other. Xingyi ran over, his expression ugly. There was a quarrel in the editor's channel. Some people say supplementary rosters shouldn't exist because any record could be misused. The person under the lamp also sent a message. Someone on the side of the ferry suggested not to accompany any more disasters, because companionship is also stressful. Tian Hengbi was scolded on the name-replacing channel. Some people say that the name discriminator betrayed the name giver. Some people say that all the names are wrong names, and even the temporary name pavilion should be demolished. Shitzi stood in front of the temporary pavilion, holding his own piece of wood with a blank expression. They said pebbles shouldn't be called pebbles either. Lin Yao squatted down. Do you want to be called Shitzi today? Shitzi nodded vigorously. That's fine. But they said the name would trap me. The name may trap you. Lin Yao said, but if you are willing to borrow it, it can also just be the name you use today. Can I change it tomorrow? Okay. Then I am still a stone today. Lin Yao touched his head. This is where the line of defense is most vulnerable to splinter pattern attacks. Once principles leave specific people, they become slogans. No matter how extreme the slogan is, it will hurt the people it wants to protect. Xinwan quickly summarized the situation in other cities in the communication. The permanently unenlightened group appears in New York. They attack anyone who shares trauma publicly, saying they are fueling the hero narrative. Eli's "I can't be the place where you live" was interpreted to the extreme. Any support derived from other people's stories is parasitism. There is a definitely non-open group in Tokyo. They accuse all those who sweep tombs, offer sacrifices, and write letters to the deceased as feeding the underworld. Rin Morikawa had to clarify, the right not to open the door does not prohibit commemoration. The Justice faction emerged in Seoul. They contend that all families are structures of oppression and that all homecomings are subjugations. Ji Yoon was used as an example, which made her very painful. Anti-Grail purists appear in London. They believe that any mutual aid notes are consuming pain, and even support methods should not be shared. Arthur is struggling to explain, the support method is not the trauma text. The Forever Verification sect appears in Paris. They use the layering of evidence as a reason to dismiss any emotional accusations that have not been fully investigated, leaving some victims feeling once again being asked to provide proof. Claire was so angry that she cursed people directly on the channel. The crime lamp doesn't tell you to shine the light on the victim's wounds. After listening to these reports, Lin Yao finally understood the true strategy of the civilization fragmentation model. The Atlas Council cannot centralize its rulings. Thus, it renders every anti-Atlas principle decontextualized. Let Whiting attack the title in turn. Let rejection come back to attack sharing. Don't let the door open and attack the memorial instead. Let the right to leave in turn attack home. Let the anti-Holy Grail turn around and attack mutual aid. Let the layering of responsibility turn around and attack the accusation. This is not an external enemy. This is an imbalance within the defense. Lin Yao stood up and walked to the undecided city square. He turned on the cross-down channel. Everyone, stop now. This sentence was spread to all district servers. New York, Tokyo, Seoul, London, Paris, Taipei, all defense nodes received his voice. Someone immediately yelled back. You want to be the center again? Didn't you just reject the General Council? Now you want to unify the principles? These questions are reasonable. Lin Yao couldn't deny it. I'm not here to unify you, he said. I'm here to remind you of something. All line of defense principles can only protect specific people. Once a principle starts requiring specific people to be injured for it, it becomes the new Atlas. The cross-city channel was quiet for a moment. Lin Yao continued. It's unclear whether people are prohibited from calling people pebbles today. Rejecting enlightenment does not prohibit people from voluntarily sharing. Not opening the door does not prohibit people from commemorating the deceased. Safe departure does not mean prohibiting people from returning home. Anti-Holy Grail does not prohibit mutual aid. The layering of responsibility does not require the victim to prove it to perfection before being angry. All principles come back to one question. Has it now made it easier for the person in front of me to keep his position? This is the solution to the civilization fragmentation model. Not to build a higher center. Rather, it brings each principle back into context. He wrote in the responsibility book. The principle cannot be expanded independently of specific people. The line of defense principle cannot reversely harm its original protector. Before each use of the principles, you need to ask, who are you protecting at this moment? Does it oppress the person in front of you? Is it still possible to exit? The metal box lights up. The light does not converge towards the center of the sky. Instead, it disperses into countless small light points, falling on every city, every node, and every channel that is arguing. There is no forced stop. There is no uniform verdict. Just a little reminder appears in front of everyone. Who is this principle protecting? Who is being pressured by it? Is it still possible to exit? 3 questions. No answer. Just ask for a pause. The spread rate of civilization fragment mode begins to decrease. Not disappear. Because people will still argue. It will still be extreme. We will still use principles as weapons. But the 3 questions are like pebbles that get stuck in the gears of every sloganization. Shitsi looked at 3 questions that appeared in front of him. He thought for a moment and held up the splinter. This principle now protects me today, called Shitsi. Xingye smiled. Yes. Who is oppressed by it? Shitsi looked at those who said he shouldn't have a name. They don't like it. Lin Yao said, dislike does not mean being pressured. Shirzi thought about it again. Then I can quit. Okay. Then I am still a stone today. This small judgment is closer to the essence of the defense line than any Grand Council. A system prompt appears. The spread of civilization fragments is hindered. New cross-city operating principles return to specific people. After the synthesis of the Atlas Center failed, the extremization of the shard was not completely successful. Lin Yao looked at the cracks in the sky. They are still there. It won't disappear. Because without the center, the world would have been broken. The job of the defense line is not to eliminate cracks. It is about preventing people from being cut by principles in the cracks. At this moment, Xinhuan's voice suddenly became solemn. Lin Yao, something is wrong in reality. Taipei? Not just. She threw the data in front of him. A new account matrix appeared simultaneously on real-life social platforms in multiple cities around the world. They didn't push Atlas. There is no recommendation meeting. Nor did I promote mythological characters. They just publish one sentence over and over again. Since there is no center, each one is true. Lin Yao's eyes darkened. Each is true. This is the next step for civilization fragments. If there is no final verdict, no general council, no common center, then each group can declare its own truth without dialogue with others. This will not be directly controlled by Atlas. It's about letting the world abandon its shared reality. The real enemy in the second half of Season 4 finally emerges. Not overly unified, but completely shattered. Underscore 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 underscore. Since there is no center, each one is true. This sentence spreads extremely quickly on the real platform. It's not as flashy as Atlas's past rhetoric. It's not as symbolic as the mythical quest. It doesn't even explicitly require one to do anything. Because of this, it is dangerous. It's like a tired conclusion. Since no one can represent everyone. Since there is no final verdict. Since every story has gaps. Since every principle can hurt someone. Then stop trying to judge together. Each is true. Each group keeps its own version. Everyone believes their own narrative. Each city keeps its own borders. No one has to convince anyone. No one has to listen to anyone. This appears to respect differences. It is, in effect, an abandonment of shared reality. Xinwan checked out the trends on various platforms in Taipei Obsidian SafePoint. This wave is not from a single source. It's like natural diffusion, but the node startup time is too neat. Some accounts are the remnants of the Atlas Matrix, and some are real people being led. Lin Yao is still in the undecided city, but he is looking at the real data at the same time. The topic has splintered into many versions. Someone in New York said, "The heroic narrative faction and the anti-hero faction will never understand each other, so it is better to be true to each other." Someone in Tokyo said, "Those who want to open the door and those who don't open the door have no common language, each is true." Someone in Seoul said, "Both those who return home and those who leave home say that they are right and each is true." Someone in London said, "Those who are willing to devote pain and those who oppose the Holy Grail accuse each other and each is true." Someone in Paris said, "Revenge and evidence can never be reconciled, each is true." Chinese-speaking areas have also begun to appear. The undecided faction, the name-correcting faction, and the revising book faction are arguing endlessly, each claiming to be true. This is no ordinary disagreement. Differences still acknowledge each other's existence in the same world. Each being true goes a step further. It says, we don't need joint verification. No common facts are required. There is no need to recognize the cost to each other. As long as each keeps his own truth. This will make all defenses lose their foundation. Because the line of defense needs a shared reality. It's important to admit that although your pain is different from mine, we still need some common rules to prevent each other from being swallowed up by the system. If shared reality collapses, every principle becomes a tribal flag. Lin Yao looked at the responsibility book. All the previous rules say, don't let a single center do it all. But now, he has to make up the other half. Not wanting to be centered does not mean not wanting to share reality. He started the cross-city channel. Morikawa Rin, Maya, Arthur, Ian Shuyen, Claire, Eli, Xingye, Deng Xiaoran, Silvermouth, No Throne and others have successively accessed. Everyone looks bad. No Throne spoke first. "I hate to say it, but this is bad. I hate to admit it, but this sucks." Maya glanced at him. "You? Against fragmentation? You? Against fragmentation?" No Throne looked cold. "I like breaking cages, not reality. I like to smash cages, not reality. This sentence is surprisingly accurate. Lin Yao looked at everyone. After the failure of the Atlas Center synthesis, it is now turning to the collapse of the common reality. It doesn't require everyone to believe in Atlas. As long as everyone no longer believes that each other can talk to each other, then we can't build a new center, Arthur said. Yes, Lin Yao said. But we need to jointly verify the bottom line. Claire nodded. Such as evidence. Rin Morikawa said, for example, I agree. Maya said, for example, you cannot speak for yourself. Yoon Seoyun said, for example, safety. Silvermouth said, for example, you cannot know, but you can't disguise your ignorance as an answer. Xingye said, for example, records can be repaired. The person under the lamp said, for example, you can't take away other people's pain. No Throne said, for example, open the exit first and then dismantle it. These are not centers. Nor is there a single truth. But to jointly verify the bottom line. Different groups can have different narratives. But consent cannot be faked. Don't steal other people's stories. You cannot speak for the silent. Pain cannot be turned into an irrevocable resource. Hatred cannot be generated in the name of the dead. Family reputation cannot be used to cancel safe departure. The lack of a center cannot be used as an excuse for irresponsibility. Lin Yao wrote in the responsibility book. No center does not mean no common bottom line. Multiple truths need to share verification boundaries. Any narrative is subject to source, consent, revocability, responsibility, damage check. Each person's truth shall not be used as a reason to avoid common harm. The light spread to every city. But this time, the system did not generate a prompt immediately. Because the common bottom line is not a tool. Not a character either. It requires someone to take the initiative and say it. Lin Yao looked at the people on the cross-city channel. We need to make a public statement. Maya frowned. Joint statement? That sounds like representation again. Joint statement? Sounds like representation again. It does not represent everyone, Lin Yao said, only the people who signed it. Claire nodded. And explain who we cannot represent. Xingye smiled bitterly. Representatives need to be accompanied by a statement that they cannot be represented. I used it just after I finished speaking. Lin Yao said, yes. This statement cannot say, the global defense line agrees. It cannot be said, all survivors, families, mourners, and undecideds support this. All we can say is, the undersigned are proposing a common bottom line based on their experiences in their respective cities, and do not represent those who are not authorized to do so. Qin quickly created the file. Title: No Central Common Bottom Line Statement. First paragraph. This statement does not represent all victims, survivors, families, mourners, rejectors, undecideds, or any unauthorized group. This statement is made only by the signatory based on his or her own experience, scope of authorization, and publicly available information. Non-signers should not be presumed to agree or disagree. This is a very unsightly beginning. Even clunky. But it's believable. The second paragraph is the common bottom line. 1. The absence of a center does not mean that there are no common facts. Second, multiple narratives still need to be examined for source, consent, and harm. Third, refusing to be represented does not mean refusing to jointly verify. 40. Pain, silence, mourning, trauma, and death must not be used without authorization. 5. Any action that advocates for freedom, justice, healing, family, civility, or efficiency needs to explain who it is protecting and who it might oppress. 6. When there is a conflict of principles, the final decision should not be submitted to a single center, but should be handled in a hierarchical, temporary, reviewable, revocable, and reopenable manner. 7. Being true to each other cannot become a shield that refuses to be tested after hurting others. The signatories joined one by one. Lin Yao, it does not represent the witnesses, nor can it represent all the undecided people. Rin Morikawa, a data ethics researcher who cannot represent all mourners. Maya Chen, public interest lawyer, cannot represent all survivors. Eli Torres, a temporary witness who cannot represent all traumatized people. Yoon Seo-yun, reporter, I cannot represent all families. Arthur Vale, several human rights researchers, not representative of all caregivers. Claire Moreau, investigative reporter and cannot speak for all families of deceased persons or unsolved cases. Green Page, the person who compiles the register cannot represent all the register keepers or the residents of the unnamed city. The person under the lamp, the one who accompanies the ferry, cannot represent all those who are affected by the disaster. Silvermouth, no answer witness and cannot represent all questioners. No Throne stopped for a long time. Finally, he signed it. No Throne, exit saboteur, not representative of all rebels. He added later. I still reserve the right to break things. I still reserve the right to smash things. When Maya saw it, she said, at least he's honest. At least he's honest. Statement released. No flashy animations. There is no system bonus. But it is like a nail driven into the diffusion flow of each is true. Supporters started retweeting. Opponents also began attacking. Some say it's too complicated. Some say it is too weak. Some say this is still building new centers. But because the statement clearly stated at the beginning that it does not represent everyone, the force of the attack on "Why do you represent me" was weakened. Because the statement acknowledges multiple narratives, it becomes difficult to attack "You deny my truth." Because the statement requires joint verification, the attack "I am both true so I don't need to be checked" is also blocked. Civilization fragment mode still exists. But the core diffusion speed of each is true began to slow down. The system prompt finally appeared. Generation of common bottom line statement. No central representative has been formed. The narrative of each being true is blocked. Atlas civilization fragmentation model fails to completely disintegrate the common reality. Lin Yao looked at the prompts and did not relax. Because he knows that the statement is not the end. A common bottom line needs to be maintained. Needs to be translated into each city's own language. Need to be used in specific events. Otherwise it will just become another pretty document. At this moment, the metal box suddenly vibrated. Not a warning. Rather, it was a message from an unknown source. You reject the center and you reject fragmentation. Then, there is only one last possibility left. Let civilization choose whether to accept incompleteness. The message isn't signed. But Lin Yao knew that it was Luo Wen's. The next line slowly emerges. 72 hours later, a global public event, a civilized referendum. Question: would you like to live in a world without final answers? Lin Yao looked at those words and his heart sank slightly. Atlas puts the question back to everyone. Not a policy. Not a myth. Not parliament. But a referendum. Let the world answer for itself. Should it be unfinished? The final battle of Season 4 finally takes shape. Underscore 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 underscore